Okay, hello everyone. We're going to wait a few more minutes for everyone to show up, and we'll get started at I think 11:02. Okay, I think we have 72 people so far, but over 600 people had registered, so we'll wait a bit longer. Okay, I think it's about time to get started. So welcome everyone to this next chapter of our webinar series on Scopus. Today we're going to be looking in detail at the metrics and analysis part of Scopus. And I am joined today by these two fine gentlemen. My name's Alexander, and I'll let them quickly introduce themselves.
Hi guys, I'm Derek Duncombe, Marketing Development Manager for Southeast Asia, based in the Singapore office. Hi and welcome.
Hi everyone, I'm Nicholas. I'm the customer consultant for Science Direct and Scopus, and I'm based in the Singapore office. I hope everyone is safe and healthy.
Yeah, so all three of us are based in Singapore, and we're all working from home, as I expect a lot of people are. And that's why we started doing this webinar series, which will continue for a few months still. Please use the Q&A function to ask questions. We'll try to leave about 15 or 20 minutes for questions at the end of the session. The webinar is being recorded. We will send a link to the recording to everyone who registered using an institutional email. So if you used a Gmail or so as such, we cannot send the recording. Now that you know who we are, I think we're going to try and run a quick poll and ask you to indicate who you are. So we'll give you about 1 minute to respond to the poll. Wow, you guys are quick already. 70% of the people have voted. 75%, so we'll give it another 20 seconds. Another 10 seconds. Okay. So we see that most people are researchers. That's fantastic. I think Scopus is primarily used by researchers, but also librarians, students, and research administrators. So we found the right people. If you've been coming to our webinars regularly, thank you very much for attending, and we hope it's been useful. And we're going to continue, so I have to close the poll, which I always find more difficult than starting it. And so these are the sessions that we still have planned in the coming weeks. So if you're interested in attending those, you can use these links to register if you haven't registered already. Today, we're going to, as always, start at the beginning and give a quick introduction, which will make painless as possible. We're going to look at metrics and analysis in Scopus, and most of it we're just going to kind of do live in Scopus. We'll be freestyling, and I'm going to hope that Nicholas jumps in and helps me out sometimes so that I'm not the only one talking. Incredibly tired of hearing my own voice. Introduction. Scopus, if you don't know what Scopus is, it is a source neutral abstract and citation database. So it is a database which collects peer-reviewed scientific content from 5,000 publishers, around 24,000 serial titles, so that's journals, conference proceedings, books, and book series, puts it into one database so that you can access all that high quality content for doing research, as well as some analytical workflows, which we'll look at in a minute. Scopus has profiles of every institution, every individual, every journal has a profile, which helps you to do some of the things which you would normally do a little bit quicker and easier. Scopus is part of a portfolio at Elsevier called Research Intelligence, which covers use cases from search and discovery through management and showcasing of research and strategic planning, benchmarking, and so forth. So it does fit into a broader spectrum of different things that you can do as a researcher, librarian, or administrator. Looking at Scopus itself, if I were to simplify everything, make it very, very simple, probably oversimplify it, you could say on the one hand with Scopus, you can do search and discovery, like you can search and find things like individual papers or people. And on the other hand, you could have more analytical workflows, which would be more about making decisions about things rather than just finding a paper. So on the left, if you look at search and discovery, you could find a set of papers which fit with a search. Like if you search for COVID-19, you find all the papers. An analytical workflow could be using different metrics to decide which of those papers you're going to read first, or which of those papers is most worth citing in your own research, right? So that's a decision where you use metrics. So you could use Scopus both to do the search, and use the metrics in Scopus to make a decision about which of those papers is most suitable for you. Same is true for finding a set of journals, right? So as a researcher, you may want to know what are the journals that I should be reading, or what are the journals I should target for submitting a paper to. And you could search and find all the journals, might be a big number. You could use metrics like journal metrics to decide which of those journals is most suitable for you to publish in. And the same is true for people. You could identify all the people that are active in COVID-19 research, for example, and you could use metrics and location, understanding where they're from, what language they might speak, time difference, to decide which of one of those researchers would be most suitable to collaborate with. So that's kind of the difference between search and discovery and an analytical workflow, but ultimately they're kind of part of the same thing. So you might go back and forth between the two. If we look at how that works in Scopus, just conceptually, metrics, the kind of fundamental basis of most things is citation counts. So every paper that's cited, every paper that's indexed in Scopus has a citation count. So you can see how many times that paper has been mentioned in the references of other papers which are indexed in Scopus. And there are different types of things you can do with citation counts, which we'll look at in a minute. You have journal metrics, which are ultimately also based on citations, but they're given at the level of a journal. So if you hear something like journal quality, journal impact, or cite score, SJR, SNP, those are different ways of using citations to determine the quality or rank of a journal, and that can help you to make decisions about journals. Thirdly, the PLUMX metrics. So if we consider, say, citation counts traditional, PLUMX metrics are some of the newer types of metrics that can complement the more traditional metrics to have a better, more detailed understanding of how papers have been consumed, or what the impact or influence is of academic papers which were published on other people. And I'm very lucky that Nicholas has joined me, because when we show this live, I'm going to ask him to show the PLUMX metrics, because you know them a lot better than me, Nicholas. So that's why I asked. In terms of tools, so a lot of it you have at the document level. So if any document that you look up, you can see citation count, and you can see some things like the PlumX metrics. But there's also some tools embedded in Scopus like citation overview, analyze results, and compare sources, which are three kind of tools in Scopus which will demonstrate to you. Probably you've seen them in previous webinars already, but we'll show you again. Lucky for everyone, that ends my slides for today, and we'll do the rest live and hope for the best. So if I go blank and don't know what I'm saying anymore, Nicholas, just jump in and help me out. So if we're now in Scopus.com, and I'm going to ask actually quickly if people use Scopus already and if they have remote access if they're working at home. So we very much wonder if everyone who's been working at home has had a good experience in being able to use Scopus, the institutional subscription from the university at home, or whether they had problems with that. So let us know. We'll give it 30 seconds. Okay, 62% of the people voted. So give it another little bit. Glad to see how responsive people are to these polls. It's gives me trust there really are people out there, because I can only see Nicholas and Derek's face. So sometimes I feel like they're my audience, but they're actually my co-presenters. Okay, I'm going to end the poll and share the results. And the most people said sometimes they use Scopus, but not often. So that's interesting. That suggests that they have access, but they don't use it too often. But still 31% said weekly, but not daily. 8% said daily. 1% said even in the weekends. Wow. Although if that means, yeah, if that's a good thing, great. But if there's a way to better use it, be more efficient, only use it in the weekdays, then let us know how we can help. Regarding remote access, 63% said that they have remote access, which is fantastic. If the 24% of you who don't have remote access, please contact your library and ask them for help. They should be able to get you remote access. If you are the librarian, then contact us, because we should be able to help all libraries get their users remote access to Scopus during this time. Is that right, Nicholas?
Yeah, please feel free to contact us or the library if you're not able to have access to Scopus remotely, because we want to make sure that you're able to have access to Scopus any time of the day, even on weekends.
Great. Okay. So I'm going to close that poll, and we are in Scopus.com, which if you have remote access, you can access at home now. And I'm going to do like the same typical search that I do quite often, which is for my own subject area that I did research in myself. So something like this, right? So that's really search and discovery. I'm trying to look at papers related to tacit knowledge and intelligence, and by default, it's ranked by date, right? Now, let's say that I was writing a thesis and I was just starting to read about this topic, and I find, 300 papers is even a small amount. I could, in some fields you might find 1,000 papers or 10,000 papers. Where would I start reading even as a researcher? And we can sort this by citation. And give it a second. So here I see that the most highly cited papers are at the top. And I see, for example, there's this paper here, 1985, which is Practical Intelligence in Real World Pursuits, the Role of Tacit Knowledge. So this is actually the topic, very linked to the topic I wrote a thesis in, because I started to read these papers. But you can see that this is a very highly cited paper. And it turned out that this paper was a very core paper in this particular field of knowledge within psychology, right? So citation counts, which you can see here, can help you to select papers to read first, and they can help you to identify which papers have been most impactful or influential within a field. If I open up this paper, I can see that it's been cited 394 times. And that's the 100th percentile. So it's in the top 1% most highly cited papers of that year in that field. And I can see it's been cited by, let me see, if I wanted to look at which papers are citing this document, you could link here to look at all the citing documents, which is another way to find other papers related to the field, but also a way to make sure that the impact is very transparent. If I wanted to look broader, I don't know if this is a good example. Usually I use a different example, Nicholas. I usually use graphene.
Yeah, graphene is a very good example.
Yeah.
But you can use all examples. That's the beautiful thing about PlumX.
So graphene is actually a topic that Singapore is very strong in terms of doing research. And I know there's this paper here, The Rise of Graphene, which is very highly cited, 28,000 citations. But to look at the wider spectrum of impact, so 28,000 citations apparently is 532 times the world average citation level for this field. So the field-weighted citation impact is a metric you might know from SciVal. It's a field normalized metric. The world average is 1.00. So for all content that's 1996, published in 1996 or later, in addition to citations, you can see the field-weighted citation impact. So you will know if it's cited more or less than average and how much. In this case, it's really, really, really highly cited, 500 times world average. But you also have the PlumX metrics here to look at a broader spectrum of metrics about the impact of this article. So I'm going to link here and hand it over to Nicholas to talk about this. So Nick, just tell me where you want me to go.
Sure thing. Can you scroll down to the bottom of the page? Perfect. So PlumX metrics is a new metric that we acquired sometime in 2017, and we've built into the system as well. You're able to access PlumX on Scopus and ScienceDirect on an article level. This is what we call an article level metrics. PlumX metrics also functions as a different type of alternative metrics. So one thing which I'll point out is that you notice that it looks like a 5-leaf clover, right? Each of the circle, the color represents a different thing entirely. Red represents citations, green represents usage, purple represents captures, orange represents mentions, and blue represents social media. So we have looked at consumption of research across atypical means, including traditional and atypical means, including citations, right? Where you can see the total number of citations from cross-reference from PubMed, which is where we get approximately a very large number of it. The larger the metrics are, the bigger the circle is. So we can see that there is a lot of citations coming from this article, obviously. There is a lot of usage in terms of abstract views and full text views and link outs. That's you can see from the circle that is in green. In purple as well, in terms of captures, in terms of readers, in terms of exports and saves, you can see that there's a lot of consumption of this article as well. Mentions are highlighted in yellow, and that's where you can see the mention of the articles in blogs, in the news and Wikipedia references. And for instance, if you were to click on the Wikipedia references, you'll be able to see where the references have come from as well.
Wow, look at that.
It's really interesting, and I think this gives you a very in-depth overview in terms of how this article is being consumed. And last but not least, blue will be social media in terms of tweets, and you can see in this case when and what the most recent tweet is, right? And in this case, this article ignited global interest and won them the Nobel Prize as well. So this is something you can see. You can take a look at see all the tweets. You can see what the tweets are like. You can see what the most recent news is like. So we can see that in this case, there's a news and the Twitter itself, publications and the papers on the graphene supermarket. You can see on Wikipedia mentions that this article has contributed to research being, or well, community articles being written on graphene, right? So this is kind of like a scientifically peer-reviewed information on some of these topics that you can find online. You can take a look at news mentions on the left corner. On the left,
Yeah.
down, yeah, there we go. And you can see that news mentions that the most recent one came in 2020 in a phonon hydrodynamics and ultra high room temperature thermal conductivity in thin graphite. So you can see how research has translated across different medias, right? Twitter, Mendeley, news articles, blog posts, and you can see how the most recently consumed piece of information there is. So Plum-X is actually a very interesting way to find out about the impact of a research. So not only are you able to ascertain the quality of the research, but you're also able to now understand the impact of the research as well. And that's something which people are talking about in this day and age, right? It's not just only about metrics, it's also about impact. How do we ascertain impact? It's a bit nebulous sometimes, but Plum-X would hopefully give you a better idea into this direction.
And
Back to you,
Nicholas,
Sander.
this is available to everyone who has Scopus.com?
Yeah.
That's great. So I think that the word impact is used so much and sometimes considered to be synonymous with citations. But if you think about it, impact just means influence, and impact is a very, there's a much broader spectrum of impact that can be determined and measured through metrics like this, even if not all of them are yet embedded into the KPOs of the universities and government. But I think even they are talking about which new metrics would make sense to include in KPOs in the future, because it gives a much more rounded or complete view of how papers are being consumed or influencing other people, as Nicholas explained. So I'm going to try to find Scopus again.
So, guys, would it be fair to say that if let's say the institution talks about the social impact of a particular researcher's work, this could be one of the metrics in terms of using Plum-X metrics to incidentally just showcase what the impact in terms in the social life of the researcher and the outreach. Would it be fair to say that?
It's one of the metrics you can use for societal impact is looking at how things are being discussed in the news and being discussed by other people and being mentioned. Certainly shows that it's made the public domain and that people are talking about something, and often the content of what's being discussed in those news articles or Wikipedia articles are what will demonstrate what the social impact is. So I think it is part of the story. It's not the whole story, but it's a good start.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to go back to the document page, and then I'm going to go back to the search results. And I'm going to point out that actually a citation count is the current total citation count. So if you look at this paper, it's been cited 28,000 times in total based on all the papers that have been loaded into Scopus, which I think is like thousands of papers a day that are being loaded into Scopus, right? So it's a total to-date citation count. If you wanted to understand the yearly citation, how many times a particular document or group of documents were cited per year. There's a tool called Citation Overview. It's often used by authors or by institutions to look in a granular way at the citations that have been received by their paper or papers. And you select the papers there, you view Citation Overview. A little window will open. And here you can see that this paper, The Rise of Graphene, which was published in 2007, here you can set the year. So if we say, well, we want to look from year of publication to, we want to exclude self-citation of the authors and update it. So you see that in the year of publication, it received 118 citations, the next year 489, the next year 813, and so forth. So you see actually that the peak number of citations is quite a few years after it's been published, which is why papers really take time to see the full impact, or in this case, citation impact of a paper. It takes time to accumulate. But you can use this tool, Citation Overview, to do that for one paper or a group of papers. Is there anything you want to say about that? Is there a reason why your customers are doing this, Nicholas?
So it's actually very interesting. Sometimes people want to see what the trends are, for instance, a research topic. So I think one very good example I can share right now is if we were to search for, say, COVID-19, we can see how the impact of the research has really gone through the roof. I think, or you can even search for coronaviruses, right? I think that's the category in which would show a long tail span. So we can take a look at this analysis first with the results. So if you take a look at, say, the overall results, we can see actually how the articles are trending in terms of citation counts. I think this is actually very interesting. Oh, because this one is too many. So when it comes to citation overviews, we tend to face this problem as well. It cannot go past a certain range of results, which is why sometimes, and I think most of you who are on the call probably have faced this at some point.
Okay, it's already set to 200 because all the results on this page are 2020, right? So it's not going to be great for breaking down by year.
No.
No. If I just select 2019 and 2018 and 2017.
2019 would be a good get, actually, yeah. Because the tail end of 2019 was when COVID-19 was being found, right? And we can see in this case, the number of citations were trending fairly low in 2016, 17, 18, and 19. That's when it started picking up. But we see that in 2020, that is when it shot through the roof. And 2020 is still ongoing, right? So it's entirely plausible that the citation counts for this article in this period of time will be even higher as well.
That's really interesting. I've seen some librarians who've been tasked to do this for all of the universities' papers because they have, I think, some institutional KPO to report on not just total citations, but citations received in specific years.
Yeah. We do have that request over from our side as well. So that's not an uncommon request because they want to find out when's the recency of when the citations have been received. Some of you probably would have to do this, right? So on the call, this tool itself, the citation overview, is actually a very impactful tool as well, because you're able to find out how it is that you're leveraging on this informational resource to create more research. Yeah, if I can put it that way.
Fantastic, thank you. I'm gonna look at a different type of thing that we can do, so we can analyze search results. So there's a button here. analyze search results. So in this case, we've searched for COVID-19 or coronavirus, which seems like a very relevant topic of the year. Who would have thought 2020 we'd all be inside? But so now I've done the search, I've selected all the results, right? So I press this button here, and we can do some light analysis. So what I mean by light analysis is it's no longer article level metrics. You're really looking at aggregated group of 21,000 papers, but it's yeah, that's a funny graph. It's like nothing, and then it just jumps up. It's ridiculous. But I think if we start, Nicholas can't stop laughing. Going to that looks much better. So there were 32 papers published in last year, and already 20,000 this year. So you can see a number of simple metrics representing any type of search that you do, whether it's for something like a topic like COVID-19, or whether it represents your university or a country or a person or a department in your university. You can look at all these metrics. It's less than you can do in SciVal. So if you really want to do the very sophisticated stuff like field-weighted metrics and percentiles and benchmarking across different types of entities and topics and all of that thing, you can use SciVal, but you can do the basics in Scopus. So here we see that actually the topic of COVID-19 and coronavirus, just as it was not present in my brain, it was apparently not present in Scopus either. But now it is, and we can see the top affiliations, top authors, top documents, document types, subject areas, and so forth, right? We can also see the top funding sponsors for those papers. For each one of these tiles, you can link through. So if we open that, you would see that within globally, you would see these are the top authors. And I believe if I click that, it's just going to open up another window and show me the 53 papers by this author. And if I wanted to see the author profile, so it's interesting, this guy's from Pune, India. I have been there once, a long time ago. And he's one of the top authors in this area that we've created related to COVID-19. So you have his profile here. But I'm going to go back. So it's just a top 15 list. And if you wanted to look, for example, at the level of a particular country or institution, you could do that by limiting your search. So for example, you would have to find whatever university you're interested in this list, or use like a search, but let's say that we're from the University of Hong Kong. We could limit the search there. So now we're looking at all papers related to COVID-19, which are published by the University of Hong Kong. And we can again analyze search results. And we see the funny graph. And we can see the top 10 authors at the University of Hong Kong that have published in this area.
So jumping in onto this section, this is actually one of my favorite sections, Sander. I really like to analyze search results. So the thing here is that not only are you able to identify who the top authors are in the subject field, you're also able to identify which institution has produced the most amount of research. And also crucially, these are people that you may want to collaborate with in the area of, say, COVID-19 or any other research topic that you're interested in. So this is one of those tools which is so powerful. And I think this is actually very impactful.
So how many Asian universities we have here? 2?
Actually, quite a lot of Asian universities, but you notice that a lot of the output comes from China because they were where it first hit. Initially, Harvard Medical School wasn't as much, but we realized that in the past couple of months, as more and more cases are occurring in the United States, the amount of research coming from Harvard is also increasing.
See that 50% of them are articles, which means the other 50% are not necessarily research articles. As 10% are reviews, 20% are letters, as well as other document types, books, chapters.
And notes as well, yeah. I think this makes sense because there's a lot of research coming out very quickly on this topic. So most of the new, most nascent research will be in letters and notes. That explains why the topic segregation is like that. It's very interesting.
So we see that the top funder is the National Natural Science Foundation of China. They have funded 502 documents related to COVID-19 or coronavirus, which are indexed in Scopus. We see some other funding bodies here that, including corporate, Pfizer has published, funded 50 documents, right? So it's not just academic, but I think here you see government and corporate, all the different sectors, we're all working together to try and solve one common problem for humanity. And I think you can find that back in the data as well. And what I like to reiterate about all of this is that in Scopus, you can really search and discover for doing research, but you can also do this light analysis to understand the landscape and help you to make decisions about different things like who you're going to work with, paper you're going to publish, what you're going to read. What are some other decisions, Nicholas? I'm going blank.
I think those are the key topics, to be honest. Sometimes you may even want to find out within your institution who is doing what topic. Maybe you want to use it as a chance to collaborate, or you can use it to stalk your professors, you know, it's one of those things.
So anyway, all of the data is there in scopus.com. It's not that hard to use. You just, have to be able to find some of the buttons and realize that how to do a search. I think a different way, if you're a university and you say, well, I'm not interested in a topic, but I want to look at myself as a university. So if we look at go local, right? Look at National University of Singapore, and we have covered that each institution has a profile. But also, if we want to analyze those papers, we can use the same method to look at all the papers of NUS. And the same can be done to look at the papers of an individual or a department. If you think of a search that will isolate the papers of a particular department or lab, if you can get the papers to be a search result in Scopus, either via the profile, a search, or a combination of profile and search, then you can do these basic analytics. If you get stuck, ask your library for a training. If library can come to us, and we're happy to give more detailed or more kind of smaller audience training, more interactive training, I think is what I'm getting at, because you can ask questions here, but it's with the Q&A function. And in the last 5 minutes, I'm quickly going to look at the third thing which we promised to show, which was journal metrics, which we already covered last week. But again, in Scopus, you have about 24,000 active titles, right? So if let's say I'm a researcher in developmental psychology, which I could well have been if I didn't join Elsevier. I don't know my ABC sometimes. Right, so that's my field, right? And I look at that there are 366 serial titles indexed in Scopus that fit my field. All right, either I can say, I want to read about that, or if I'm have to publish, and let's say that I'm a PhD student, so maybe I don't want to go for the Q1 top quality journals, we can use the journal metrics to help select the journals that are the right level for me to publish in. So let's say, I'm quite ambitious. I don't want to go for like the lower quality, so I want to go for a second quartile and press apply. And see there's 79 journals that are quartile 2 within my field. Now I'm going to look through the titles, and obviously some of them might be more relevant to what I'm going to publish in. So you have to think of your field. But if you find a bunch of journals that are probably equally as relevant topic-wise, you can use the 3 journal metrics, which we talked a lot about 2 weeks ago, CiteScore, SJR, and SNP, which are based on citations. There are 3 different ways of determining differences between journals in terms of how often they're cited, and that helps us to rank journals or make distinctions in terms of journal quality. So here we see that the CiteScore for this journal in 2019 is 3.5, and that means it ranks number 88 out of 327 journals in developmental and educational psychology. So that can help my decision-making process in terms of should this be a journal that I'm going to target, and how it compares to other similar journals in terms of journal quality. You can see the rank trend here and all these things. So I think that has covered what we promised in this training, and we can have the next small 20 minutes to do Q&A.
Okay, thank you, Sander. Nicholas, do you have anything to add on to this?
No, just from the chat box, there is a question on someone who wants to know about attendance certificates for the Scopus webinars. So I think, Derek, you're the perfect person to ask.
Yeah, in fact, I did answer somebody who actually put it in the Q&A also. So there will not be any certificate of attendance for the Scopus or SciVal webinar series, yeah? Okay, I'm going to move on to...
Matter of fact, to us, it's all about the knowledge. No, we understand that people ask for certificates, and it's nice to have, but for these, we've decided not to do that. We want it to really be about giving information that's useful to you to understand and use Scopus. And there's so many attendees, literally thousands and thousands, it would be difficult to make e-certificates that are meaningful.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on to the questions. There are 5 questions so far. So the first question, does the PlumX metrics affect the placement of the article in the results page?
No. So you can rank your search results by a number of factors, and those do not include the PlumX metrics.
Thanks.
So one key thing about PlumX metrics is to communicate engagement without a score. So we don't really believe in using it as a scoring device or a matrix device. The metrics are there to showcase how it's being consumed and what are the impacts of it. So Sander is showing you right now how we are sorting it out. So it's by the date, where is the latest article that's published, the most number of citations, relevance by keywords, authors, and source titles, amongst others. But we don't really rank it by PlumX metrics.
Thanks, both of you. Second question, does Scopus take into consideration self-citations?
It does. So if we were analyzing a paper and looking at, for example, citation overview for this highly cited paper here, you could exclude self-citations. And you can do the same if you're analyzing an author. Yes, so by default, all citations are included, including self-citations. And there's quite often different places in Scopus and SciVal actually also to exclude self-citations.
Great, thanks, Sander. Next question, what is the equivalent of impact factor in Scopus for journals?
That would be CiteScore. So journal impact factor is made by a different company. And while they have one metric, which is available, I think journal impact factor exists for about 12 or 13,000 journals. We have 3 journal metrics, which are available for all 24,000 serial titles in Scopus. And the reason we have 3 is because we believe that every metric has its weaknesses. Every metric can potentially be gamed to some degree. So it's best to have multiple metrics for each type of thing that you're measuring. And it can allow you to kind of triangulate through between the different metrics, or to just choose the one that you like the methodology the best. So therefore we have site score, SGR, SNP. All three of them are citation-based metrics to make determinations, to understand the differences in quality between journals. So that's the same thing as journal impact factor does, right? Site score is probably conceptually the closest one, but still significantly different. And I think the key thing to keep in mind is that we have these metrics for all 24,000 journals that are, serial titles, which are in Scopus. That includes also conferences and book series. Wow, that was a really long sentence. I gotta drink.
Thanks, Sander. So on a related question, right? So someone was asking, could you please repeat, what is site score?
Site score is a journal metric that determines that is a proxy for the quality of a journal. So here we see that the site score of this journal here, which is published by Wiley-Blackwell, the CA Cancer Journal for Clinicians, has a site score of 435. That actually means that the papers have are on average cited 435 times, right? So it is the citations from 2016 to 2019 to the papers published in that journal in the same years. So this actually is an updated methodology for site score, which we will cover in a separate webinar. So it's based on citations, but it basically, site score is a journal metric. It's a metric that is a proxy or indicator for the relative quality of a journal. We see that this journal ranks #1 in oncology, so it is the highest quality journal or most highly cited journal in oncology, which is indexed in Scopus. I don't know if there's so many ways to say the same thing, Nicholas. Do you have a more graceful, articulate way to communicate this?
No, because it's a methodology, so it also has to be specific. I would say it's citations, it's equivalent citations over equivalent documents over the same period of time, so that you're able to find the impact of the journal itself. And I think over in Scopus, we have division this into subtopics, so we can be more specific and we can compare the score for these journals according to other journals from the similar subject topics as well.
Great,
yeah, so that's why here this journal is only being compared to other journals in the sub-discipline. So we have 334 categories in Scopus. So it's only being compared to the 331 journals which are related to oncology, right? So it's a fair comparison. This one now ranks #1. We hope that starts to answer your question, but it's not a difficult concept. It's a metric that looks at journal quality based on citations.
Great, thank you. Next question. When I check the source details of a journal, it shows the journal is in the 18th percentile. How can I convert it to the quartile ranking?
Yeah, 18th would be Q4. So what was it, 1 to 24 would be Q4, right? Percentile is just breaking it up by single percentages. And you have deciles, which is by 10%, and quartiles is by 25%. You have to realize that the highest percentile is the top, so 99th is top 1%, and if it was 1, then it would be bottom 1%. Right, so 99th is obviously top quartile, right? Top 25%. If it were 74th, then it would be Q2.
Q2.
Yeah, so you have to do it that way.
So this also answers someone's questions on how we determine quartile 1 to quartile 4 in terms of journals. The same ranking is not the same as with SCImago. SCImago has their own matrix of counting as well, so it's not exactly the same. That's why we give metrics such as SNP, site score, SJR separately.
Right. Thank you. Next question, regarding the metric data availability in Scopus, can we use it freely, or do we need to secure some kind of permission for research assessment purposes? Thanks.
I think that if you're going to use a lot of data, so there's certain use cases that you can use the Scopus API as a customer to, for example, feed into a research management system or repository. I think if you're going to do research, there's a process to ask permission from Elsevier to use the data for that. But I think it a little bit depends on how much you're using. I've seen research be done that doesn't use much data, and I don't think it's really an issue.
Okay, thank you. Next one. Next question, is the PLUMX metric and the site score similar? Are they similar with the one in Web of Science?
So PLUMX and, sorry, the question is?
One sec. Is the PLUMX metric and the site score, are they similar? That's the first question. The second question is, are they similar with the one in Web of Science?
So so site score and PLUMX are very different things. So PLUMX is an article metric, so it's looking at the impact of one individual article, and site score is looking at the impact of one whole journal. PLUMX is looking at the impact of an individual article based on multiple indicators, right? It's looking at readership, it's looking at citations in different databases and news mentions, and so it's a broad spectrum of metrics to look at the whole story of impact of one individual paper. Site score is looking at the quality or impact of a journal based on citations. So they are very different. How it compares to Web of Science, I'm not sure what you're referring to in Web of Science. I'm not like a Web of Science expert, so I can't say.
Thanks. On a related note, so is site score also possible for articles?
No, no. So you can look at, obviously, at what journal an article is published in. So if you publish an article and you say, well, my paper is published in Nature, which is a top 1% best journals, I think that you can do that, but it doesn't mean that your article has a site score. The site score refers to the journal. It doesn't refer to the article. But there are institutional metrics, to look at how many top quartile journals has my researchers published in. So then they would not be looking at the article citation score per se, but they would be looking at the site score of the journals that those articles are published in.
Okay, thanks. Let me just see. Next question is, what are the basic parameters to be considered to select a journal for publication?
So if you're a researcher trying to choose a journal, is this about a researcher trying to select a journal to publish in, or
yes.
is it? Okay.
He says yes. Yeah.
It should fit your topic, and it should fit. I think it should fit the where you're at in terms of your level. So if it's your first publication as a PhD student, maybe you don't go for Science or Nature, but go for a journal that you're more likely to be accepted into. So there's this whole spectrum of quality and difficulty of being accepted into a journal. But I think you want to pick one where they're likely to consider your topic, where there's that synergy in terms of what they publish in and what your topic is.
Jumping on to that, so you need to also observe the aims and scope of the journal that you're choosing to select it. It has to be aligned with the topic of your interest. You may want to consider who the editors are. You may also want to take a look at the journal to see what are the most recent articles that have been published, to see if it aligns with your topics as well. Elsevier has a free-to-use platform called journalfinder.elsevier.com. So you can type in your title, your abstract, and your keywords. and we'll show you a list of Elsevier journals, which we think would be an appropriate place for you to publish your articles in. So this is a free to use platform as well. Sander is typing in this as a live demo. So you can take a look at it, and then you can just simply copy in your title, your abstract, and your keywords. And then we'll recommend to you which journals we think are appropriate. We'll show you a range of metrics. We'll showcase to you the date of acceptance and the time to publication. So I believe this would give you a very comprehensive list for some of the parameters that you're looking for as well.
Thank you, Nicholas. Okay, let Sander complete.
It didn't work for me, but I didn't do it very well. I think it's really me. It's not the platform.
No, I think they are actually very particular. So you need to like the abstract. You actually need a full length abstract to it.
I mean,
so yeah.
Is this not comprehensive enough?
It's not comprehensive enough. Yeah, they're quite specific about it.
Okay,
yeah.
all right.
Okay, I mean, in your free time, you can go to journalfinder.com.
Also, to add on to that, every journal that you see here in Scopus, you should be able to link through to the homepage. So if you want to see who the editors are, read the vision and scope like Nicholas suggested, you can do that. And if you want to read the most recent papers, obviously you can link to those papers from Scopus.
Great, thank you. Next question, is Sage Open Journal part of Scopus?
Depends on which journal. Yeah.
We cover, I think, all of the major publishers and a lot of very small publishers. So yeah, I believe Sage is included in Scopus.
I'm just trying to cover as many questions as possible. So next one, could you please tell me about the metrics of research articles?
Wait, I'm still on the Sage one. Sorry.
Okay, sorry.
There we go. Look, I can search by publisher. I'm so smart.
Brilliant.
So now we can see there are 928 Sage journals which are indexed in Scopus. All of them had to make it through the quality control process. So we don't select by publisher. We select by accepting the journals which meet the criteria as evaluated by the CSAB. But yeah, you can see by publisher. So you have to use this publisher here. Type in the publisher name and you can find all the related journals in Scopus. Sorry, Derek.
Of course. So the question was, what are the basic parameters to be considered to select a journal for publication?
That was already answered, man.
Yeah, that was answered.
All right,
yeah,
sorry. Let me just look through another one. Just trying to find one more that's, okay, there's this question I'm just going to answer across. Sometimes we are not able to attend the live webinars, but would like to have the recording sent. Is this possible? If yes, can I register for that seminar and the recording be sent to me? Just a reminder, you need to register with your institutional email addresses. Then only can we send you the URL and password, okay? So next question, is your platform Digital Commons linked to all other platforms we can retract as in Scopus, such as PlumX, Metrics, Sitescore, etc.?
There is a lot of integration between Digital Commons and Scopus. So you can, for example, use Scopus to automatically load the Scopus content into Digital Commons, right? If you're using it as a repository. Yes, it's PlumX metrics are available in Digital Commons as well, so that you could look at every article that of your institution, not only yes, all the PlumX metrics are available there as well.
Great, thanks. Okay, mindful of time, we've got 1 minute more to go. Just going to choose one short question. Could you tell me about the metrics of research articles? I think you answered that question earlier on, right? So because they're quite, some of them are very similar. Some of them get multiple questions inside here of the same question.
I mean, in summary, for metrics of research articles, you're looking at, say, citation counts and field-weighted citation impact, as well as PlumX metrics. Do you think I missed out any other article level metrics, Sander?
I don't think so.
All right.
Citation percentile, maybe?
Yep.
Okay, the rest of the questions, are not directly related to the topic for today, so I will not be touching on them. It's now 12 o'clock, so it's time.
And
Wow.
there's the bells are going to prove it. So I think on that note, we're going to wish everyone well and thank you for coming. Hope it was helpful, and we'll see you next time. Take care.
Happy 1st of July, guys.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Sign off while the bells go. All right. Ciao, everyone.
See y'all.